Okay, we are off and running.
Thank you, Casey.
It's still saying we're in practice session.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Good call. Now we're off and running. We are off and running.
Okay. Well, welcome one and all to the June 29th, 2021 Lincoln County Planning Commission meeting. At this time, is there anything that's not on our current agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
It's on my, okay. Tonight we're holding a live virtual electronic proceeding on 3 case files. This hearing actually began the first part on June 14th. These are case file 01-LUPC21, case file 02-LUPC20, 02-LUPC21, and file 03-LUPC21. The applicants are Sea Ridge Condominiums, Club World Market Glen Eden Beach, Edward and Joan Tanabe, Richard and Sally Grant, Terry and Janice DeSilvia, and Sherry Kane. Each of the applicants is requesting an amendment to the Lincoln County Comprehensive Plan to adopt a goal exception to Goal 18, Implementation Requirement 5. The effect of approving the goal exceptions would be to allow the applicants to apply to OPRD, that's Parks and Rec, for permits for the placement of beachfront protective structures at the subject properties. Should be noted that while we are having a single proceeding on each of these 3 goal exception applications, at the conclusion of this process, the Planning Commission will take action on each of these applications independently of each other, which is why there are 3 separate applications. Also note that the public hearing portion of these proceedings has concluded and the record is closed. It closed officially yesterday at 5 p.m. That's June 28th. The purpose of this meeting this evening is for the Planning Commission to deliberate, to reach an oral decision, and then to make arrangements for approval of a final written decision. Okay, we're clear on that. So at this time, let's have staff review what new correspondence has come into the record since our last meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So since the June 14th meeting, we've received 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, roughly 7 pieces of correspondence and some additional submissions from the applicant. I'll go through this and then you go do the roll call after that, if that's all right. So, okay.
Thank you, Misty.
There were
no problem.
There were 3 letters from residents adjacent to Sea Ridge that we received. Those letters were from Douglas Slama, Jennifer Aklama, and Cynthia Groby. Hopefully I didn't terribly butcher those names pronouncing them. And then we did receive additional comments on the 21st from Oregon Shores. There was also they also included a letter from Oregon Parks and Recreation as an exhibit to their letter. We received let's see, bear with me for a second. I just want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, so those are the letters, or those are the additional comments that we received, or the additional information we received. We received from the applicant, we received a response. Miller Nash responded to the additional submissions from Oregon Shores that came in on June 21st. We received from the applicant, and they had several exhibits, 3 exhibits that they included with that, that were placed on the website as well. There's also a video that they requested be included as in the record that was something that Richard Grant had taken adjacent to his property. That's also available on the website. And then we received a response from the applicant to the letters from Slama, Alklama, and Groby. That letter came in from David Phillips, and that was received on June 28th. And that, oh, and Oregon Shores, I did post an email on the website that indicated Oregon Shores also wanted, it's not relevant to this application, they wanted their additional comments also submitted to the record for the 01 MISC case file that that the Planning Commission heard last week. So that proceeding was continued. So that covers the additional material that we've received to date. And as the chair pointed out, the record is now closed. All this material is available on the website, and I think that covers what we've got. So I'll hand it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so let's take one step back and let's do that roll call now that we are all here, I see. Hello, Scarlett, welcome. So let's go with the roll call.
For Chair Bobbitt,
Here.
Commissioner Pelletier,
Here.
Commissioner Kier,
Having a hard time hearing you, Megan.
Yeah.
is that better?
I think we're asking for Scarlett. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you. I'm having a hard time hearing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hopefully that's better. I just adjusted my volume. Commissioner
Better.
Lambrecht. Okay. Commissioner Lambrecht.
Here.
Commissioner
Here.
Skolnick. Excellent. Thank you, Misty. Commissioner Skolnick.
Here.
Commissioner Cutler.
Here.
Commissioner Stratton.
Here.
Commissioner Bugenhagen.
Here.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, we have a quorum. All right, so I'm sure everyone has read through all of this material, and hopefully you have some notes and some opinions about where we're at, because at this time it's up to us to go over this and give your thoughts on where we should go with this. And again, we are looking at the goal exception, and we are not in any way debating what happens after the goal exception, pro or con. It's up to us to just look at the merits of this case. So anyone want to start off with where we are at on this? Let me just go through what there were two main OAR thresholds to go through, and that was OAR 660-004-0022 on is there a demonstrated need before you can go to the next OAR. So I think maybe why don't we tackle one thing at a time here? Anyone else have a better idea? Anyone have any opinions on the demonstrated need?
I have an opinion. It seems that this thing going way back and now it's coming right to our doorstep. Even though these are, as you mentioned, kind of vacating, it's not the right word. It seems to me that there's a potential for a lot of policy to be brought to bear just out of what exceptions that we make. And that's been troubling me a little bit as I look at the individual requests. And I have a real feeling for people that are in trouble with the beach problem. And then try to add that or incorporate that into the philosophy or lack of philosophy that's been demonstrated over the past decades. What we do here today, or what we recommend, is rather important. So I guess it's just kind of my prelude to what others might say regarding these individual requests.
Thank you, Dick. That's very true. I think we have to be very careful in how we approach this and make sure we have checked every box here. Anyone else want to offer an opinion?
Yeah, this is Phil. I think that proponents, attorneys really laid out an excellent, an exception programmer, you know, what they were discussing. And I don't have any, myself, I don't have any problems approving this. And they basically, through their discussion last week, you know, said that this has to do with this small area, this small beach area. And so whatever action we take on this small beach area really shouldn't affect the rest of the coast. I mean,
Whoops,
Bill, did we lose you?
we did, there he is.
He's on mute.
You're on mute, Phil. There we go.
well, I don't know what happened, but you lost me. But anyway, so I don't really have too many reservations about this, and for the life of me, this is probably one of the biggest and most involved hearings that I've been involved with, even though I haven't participated in the previous two. I did, you know, watch the YouTube process, and I've read all the information and stuff. And at first I was really confused. But I think that they, between the three attorneys, they put everything together in a context that I can really understand. So I'm not too concerned about us changing what's happening in Astoria or Brookings, you know. And we're just discussing this one area that has a history all to itself. That's it.
And I hear you on that. I think that it's in the wording of any findings, though, that make it crystal clear that it is unique and pertains to just this unique case. That's my concern, is that I don't buy, and neither did the DLCD, and I don't think staff, of all the other arguments with various other goals, economic and housing and things like that, because those are the same for anywhere on the coast, and they're not unique to this particular area. If we opened it up to all those things, then hey, open season on riprap is my concern. Anyone else care to comment? Terry, you look like you're ready.
Yeah, I would like to chime in a little bit here. I think it is appropriate that we do consider an exception on the basis that we have a lot of this area has already been armored. And what I have learned through the years of living in Salishan is that if you don't armor, you're asking yourself for a problem with your neighbor, or vice versa. Once you start the armoring process, that must be carried out through to a point where there is a natural break in the topography that would not be affected. So with that being said, I think the request on these 3 locations is appropriate for a goal exception. And yes, there is an economic impact on it to the county and to the individuals and entities involved. That's about it.
Yeah, but I don't buy that economic thing as being a unique factor. I think, yes, there would be an economic loss, but it's not part of my decision-making for why there should be an exception for this.
Oh, I agree with that, Andrea. It's there, but it's the last of the list, if you will.
Yeah, it's not the main item. It's like you say, down the list.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, Scarlett, did you look like you were ready to say something?
Yeah, this is very, very challenging to me. I feel strongly that we've got a Pandora's box sitting in our lap. And it's very, very uncomfortable to me. And when we discuss armoring, and even if we just look in that one area, it is my opinion, and I'm open to criticism here or correction. We still have those in that area that are going to take more velocity of the waves when these are armored. So that means that I feel, the way I see it is we are passing the buck to the neighbors that aren't armored yet. Unless all of Lincoln City is going to be armored, or all of that lateral cell there, littoral cell, whatever, then when we armor this area, then the guy next door is going to have a problem if he is not already armored. And the question I have, because we have criteria that guides us here, and if I'm correct, these don't qualify based on the fact that these were not developed lots on January 1, 1977. If that's been proven differently, I apologize for missing that point.
Yeah,
That's
no.
why you're doing the exception.
Yeah, that's why we're here. Yeah, so it has been established that they are ineligible, and in the first meeting, that was all laid out, the history of that, and that brings us to why they're asking for an exception. There is an exception clause in this. If you meet certain requirements of the OAR statutes, but I hear where you're coming from, but there are paths to an exception. It doesn't mean that we automatically grant that,
right?
But that is what they are doing. All the applicants in this cases.
I'll comment. Yeah. Considering the existing beach and bluff conditions, I think it's unreasonable to deprive the applicants of the recourse they need to protect their properties from the wave actions as a result of the impacts of the actions of their adjacent property owners. Had this come to before the commission, and I was on it at that time, before there was the buildup of the beachfront protective structures that are along this particular cell, I would have voted to deny this application. But they have shown a demonstrated need of property protection. And it has been established that it's now impossible for this entire littoral cell to meet goal 18. It's got to the point where it's impossible for us to meet that goal in that particular area, due not just to legal exemptions, but to illegal ones that have been allowed to be retained. That to me says it would be an undue burden for these participants to now be left to the environment and the buildup of the wave action. And the area is not, doesn't need any mitigations for the wildlife or vegetation. And any of the reasonable, and there's no need or no ability to develop the reasonable alternatives except for having them required to use seawalls instead of riprap, like was it was in the response to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. They said that the use of seawalls was a better alternative than riprap because as sea level rises, that riprap becomes the waves will pick them up and cause more destruction, or more than a seawall would. So I think I agree absolutely. We have to make sure that it doesn't set a precedent for anywhere else along the coast. I imagine it will set a precedence, whether we intend to it or not, that other people along that stretch of coast who haven't already armored their area will probably come to our decision in order to accomplish that, get approval to go ahead and do that, even if they weren't included in the 1977 decision. So I think I'd have to vote for approving the exceptions in this case.
Okay, thank you, Shaylin. I guess I'm gonna a little bit of my own opinion here is bridging both of these last two comments is that I think that this littoral cell is, as they stated, a lost cause, that the beach is gone. These people all in that cell will constantly be fighting the ocean from here on out. It's going to be expensive to them. But you know, that's just the consequences. But I am concerned, and I mean, these are 3 separate applications, but the one that is most bothering me is the Sea Ridge. And due to the letters that came in from the adjacent eligible property owner who if the riprap or wall or whatever or protection gets on them, it's going to accelerate, even though it's going to be destructive. The cell is lost. It's still going to accelerate what's going to happen next door. And I think that's why we, got the letter from the 3 people who have that joint property. It's a concern that it's going to accelerate their timeline for having to do something. So that I am concerned because there is an effect, a direct effect or consequence. Yet on the other hand, in the applicant material, the Sea Ridge application material supplemental on page 9, it says that whatever they do is going to, it says, what does it say? Property, it'll tie into adjacent to avoid any adverse impacts to adjacent properties. So I don't know if that has any weight of law or anything, if it's, and I guess it's not really part of our purview, but it concerns me that approving that particular one is going to accelerate the whole erosion process on that particular property.
I agree with that. And I think that's part of my concern about us setting a precedent, and the other, like you say, accelerating the damage to the neighbors, which then puts them in a position to say, hey, I have to put in riprap because otherwise my property is going to be destroyed more quickly or more rapidly because of what's being installed next to me.
That is a case to approve the exception. And the exception, I think, may set wheels in motion for that neighbor who is not armored or rip-wrapped or seawalled to go ahead and move and do something.
But they're already, Terry, they are eligible. That property's already eligible. They could apply for.
I understand that part of it, but they have chosen all this time not to, knowing that they could have the damage occur. And coming from a community that has had the entire spit armored, except for one, I've seen what has happened when you don't do it, or if you do it incorrectly. And that's my concern. We need to have a uniform process, because when they did the sand mining, that's when the problem started. And now we're all having to deal with it. And to protect the ownership of those properties that are on the waterfront, armored or not, it should be a process that can carry through to have them armored. My thoughts.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, Scarlett, go ahead. You have to unmute. Yeah, okay.
I want to be respectful of the fact that that could be an undue financial hardship to the owners of those properties. And when I read over all of the information, I was kind of left wondering, yes, it was a mistake for us to do all the sand mining, but I'm lost at two wrongs making a right, you know. I don't know that armoring with climate change is going to solve anything. So it's a little frightening to think that we're going to make another mistake again. That's my opinion.
Okay. Phil?
Yeah. In my 46 years on the Planning Commission, and approximately 40 years since we zoned and did a comprehensive plan on the county, this is the first time that Lincoln County has run an exceptions process. And Dennis Barthold mentioned in last week's meeting that if this doesn't qualify, what does? And this is why the exceptions goal was made for situations like this. And we have to look, I think, not at the individual person, but as the area as a whole. And what we're looking at is the inevitable erosion of all these properties. And all we're doing is postponing what Mother Nature is probably going to do in the next 50, 100 years, 10 years. We don't know. You know, when it happens, it happens. But this way, we're allowing the people to spend a whole lot of money trying to protect their investment. And I see, and as Mr. Bartolda said, if this doesn't qualify, why have the exceptions go? I mean, we look in the valley where they do exceptions quite often for taking all our prime farmland and sticking tract houses on it. We're not doing this here. We're trying to protect the houses that are already built and protect the subdivisions that have already been developed. We're not creating any new stuff. So that's my 2 bits worth.
Okay. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully I'll stay with you all. Okay, Scarlett, you want to go ahead again?
Follow up on what Phil's saying. I have a concern about protecting the ocean.
Right. It's also interesting that Mr. Bartoldas also said in the last meeting that if we knew what we knew now back then about climate change and all this, would we even allow this kind of development? Which I would venture most of us would have an opinion that probably not, but it is what it is. And I hope that all the applicants are listening, because I think the real message here is that this really is lost cause case. You're just, you know, it's inevitable. It's expensive. Protecting your investment or taking your losses and getting out of Dodge, you know, but in any event, it's, you know, even if they did that, it would still present problems for everyone else and not the purview of this hearing. So, Judy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with Phil primarily, but all of you in that, you know, it's been irreversibly altered, that littoral cell. And had we known what we know now, we would, maybe it would not have been developed, or maybe we would have allowed the riprap in the first place, or the protective structures. And there's nothing that we can do to undo what we've done, what's been done. It's a shame to see people lose their big investments. And I think if we consider this littoral cell unique in its properties, and it's what we have to face and just I'll come to a decision to allow the exception.
Okay, Judy, thank you. I guess as far as framing, I'm getting a sense that overall, we're leaning towards, as a group, towards an exception. But I think we need to define exactly why, state exactly why it's unique, and then satisfy the 4 tests of OAR 660004002 Goal 2C to be completely crystal clear. So I think the thing that's unique about this property is that the littoral cell itself was already it was a depleted system that then got riprap applied to a very large proportion of it, which is now making it dysfunctional, completely dysfunctional. And so we are not saving any, no beach will be saved here at all by allowing or not having.
That's right. We can't return the beach to its natural original natural
And
state.
there, right, and there's nothing on this whole cell that's endangered as far as sensitive habitat or anything, because we're basically water up at to the bottom of a cliff. And so the beach is not going to even exist during many tide episodes. Any
I'd
other?
like to make- I'd like to
Right.
make a comment. This meeting has been really good for me, starting with Bartolos's argument the last time. But Skolnick and Stratton's arguments really kind of tipped me over. And I think it makes sense to go ahead.
All right. Anyone else?
No, I have a suggestion. Why don't we approve it and have the attorneys write up the reasons? And then I know you want to have an ironclad thing, but we usually have the attorneys write up the findings of fact and all that, for that. And I don't know, maybe Anno wants to put his 2 cents worth in, but that's kind of what I'm leaning to, because I think this is way over all of our heads. I mean, you probably understand it a lot more than I do, but I don't feel comfortable in making a motion other than approving it and having the attorneys draw up the findings of fact and all that.
Okay, I hear you. I am uncomfortable with the attorneys writing this up because there were many things in their arguments that I think are not to be put in this. And I see Anno raising his hand. So Anno, would you like to interject here?
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, the most important thing was to really take the temperature of the commission and realize that the votes are probably there for a goal exception. So we've sort of crossed that very critical threshold. And now I think, if I understand the conversation, there are the concerns that the findings are really get the planning commission would basically be the instructions to us and the attorneys to make this goal exception work. The most important thing, I think, and some of you know this already, if indeed you vote for a goal exception, yes, the attorneys of record will be asked to submit some draft findings. However, so that's something we've done forever. However, that is not binding on us. Those draft findings will come to staff, and we're going to pay very, very close attention to what I'm picking up a lot of instructions here as we go along about the narrow nature of this and being careful not to that it really focuses in on this 3-mile segment, and I'm very mindful of the precedential implications if this is not done well. The other thing is that if this is not done well, we could easily have a situation where the state and other groups then, if the findings seem to be open-ended, where they would literally reverse themselves and be opponents of this if we're not careful. So I think, at least from my perspective, I've heard that loud and clear from each of you that the ultimate argument for this has to do with the fact that the natural functions of the beach have been compromised to the point they no longer function, and that beach in effect can't be saved. So that, I think, even with what you've said tonight, I feel comfortable that we could receive some draft findings from the attorneys and then apply ourselves to it as well, and achieve that outcome. But again, if you vote tonight, and I would ask Jerry to weigh in on any of this as well. If you vote tonight for a goal exception, again, the attorneys will create a set of drafts for us. Staff then we'll work with those, make sure that we believe that they conform to the instructions of what you've given us tonight already. And then ultimately, we would be coming back to you for a vote on those findings. So you're going to have, you will also, this is not a, so I think the one thing that I heard that would concern me if I believed it is we're just going to hand this over to those attorneys. They're going to do this and then you'll vote on it. That's really not the way it's going to happen. They're going to write something up. It's going to be handed to us. And we're going to work very hard to make sure that it conforms with the instructions that you're giving us. And then you're going to have in two, well, I think we're recommending in 2 weeks to make sure there's adequate time for the findings to be generated and vetted, that you'll have another opportunity to look at those findings and then vote on the findings. So I think there are still, we're getting close to the end here, but there are still several really important steps where you still have major control to make sure that whatever we put in front of you meets your expectations, and that you got to be confident that those findings then achieve what you've set out to, what the kinds of instructions you've given us.
Madam Chair, could I talk briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is Jerry Herbage, the Assistant County Counsel. And if for those who see that, it's listed as Michael Herbage, but really it's Jerry. So anyway, to get to the point, I agree with what Anno said, but let's get to the salient legal points. A land use decision means a decision that's approved in writing. That's not going to happen tonight. What staff really needs is from the Planning Commission to get a yay or no or nay on the goal exception. And I can tell you that you've had, and we've deliberately sat on the sideline because you're like a jury and you need to make the call. But you have had insightful comments. You have had good direction already to me on where you're coming from. And so what will happen if you go ahead and take a vote on each of the 3 applications, findings will be prepared, but you will receive those in advance. And if you will have the opportunity at a continued proceeding to say whether you agree with those or you want some changes. And so you don't need to work out all the details. In fact, it's rather impossible to do that tonight. I do appreciate from Madam Chair that you are very tied into the decision criteria, and it's important that they all be met. And I agree with that. But really what we need is some direction from you as to where you're going. You can do that with a vote, and we'll prepare the findings. You'll have a chance to review those. You'll have a chance to ask for changes until it meets what you feel that the decision should be, and that becomes the written decision. And if it's an approval, it'll be in the form technically of a recommendation. We will prepare an ordinance, a draft ordinance with attached findings, and that's how that will work. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Thank you, Jerry. That's very helpful and clear. Okay, so at this time, I guess we're kind of there. If we need to make a motion one at a time on these to either approve or deny, however someone makes their motion for each case file as we go through. If someone's ready to do that for the first one, case file 01 LUPC 21, that is the Sea Ridge condominiums, I welcome the opportunity that you have now.
I'll go ahead and make that motion with regard to the Sea Ridge condominiums, that we approve a goal exception and request that staff prepare the appropriate ordinance and background information to enforce that motion.
The findings.
The findings.
Findings, excuse me. It's
I'll second the motion.
Okay, second by Phil. Okay, let's go around, call the roll, approve or deny. This is for Sea Ridge.
Megan, you're on mute.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Commissioner Pelletier,
Aye.
Commissioner Kier,
That's
Aye.
Scarlett. Megan, you're still kind of low there on your,
Maybe people do a thumbs up or thumbs down.
but I don't think
No,
Scarlett heard you.
Why don't you go ahead and take the roll? Let's, can
Yeah,
everybody, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
Commissioner Kier.
Aye.
Scarlett was an
Snap,
aye.
yes or no? Yes.
Commissioner Lambrecht,
Yes.
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutler,
Yes, and I might say that Ono's comments at the end, just before the vote, were very important. Thank you.
Commissioner Bugenhagen,
yes.
Chair Bobbitt.
No.
Thank you.
Did Shaylin vote?
Not yet.
I'm so sorry. Commissioner Stratton.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Shaylin. I believe that was everyone.
Great, thank you. Okay,
So just to recap, was that a 7-1 vote?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so the motion carried. Okay.
Okay, the next one is 02 LUPC 21 Club World Mark at Gleneden Beach. Anyone prepare a motion?
I'll go ahead and prepare the same motion for Worldmark, that we approve a goal exception to goal 18, and to allow Worldmark to address their beach problem.
And I would
Thank
second the
you.
motion.
Second. And Phil seconded. Great. Okay, let's call the roll again. Megan?
Commissioner Pelletier,
Yes.
Commissioner Kier,
No.
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutler,
yes,
Commissioner Stratton,
Oops, forgot to unmute. Yes.
Commissioner Bugenhagen,
Yes.
Chair Bobbitt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Again, that was 7-1 for Jerry there. And it's quick, so it carries. And last but not least is case file 03 LUPC 21. That is the applicants Edward and Joan Tanabe, Richard and Sally Grant, Terry and Janice DeSilvia, and Sherry Kane.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the grant goal exception for the 4 properties on Lincoln Avenue in Lincoln Beach, to allow them to effectively address their problems collectively as a group.
I'll
To grant
second
the
the
goal
motion.
exception.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Phil. And Megan, last time.
Commissioner Pelletier,
Yes.
Commissioner Kier,
No.
Commissioner Lambrecht, Commissioner Lambrecht,
Misty?
Misty?
No.
Commissioner Skolnick.
No.
Yes.
Thank you, Missy. Commissioner Cutler,
yes,
Commissioner Stratton,
Yes.
Commissioner Bugenhagen,
Yes.
Chair Bobbitt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and that was 6-2. Is that correct? All right. All right. So next step is to get all these findings and get the draft, and you think that will be done in 2 weeks, staff? Is that correct?
Madam Chair, we had a vigorous conversation about that this afternoon, because just in case we were presented with that opportunity. Well, I think we can do, and Jerry, and John, I would invite your commentary as well, but I think we'll be able to do that. And I think the reason we will be able to do that is there's so much time and energy that's already been spent on this. So some of us have been living and breathing this for quite some time. There will be a set of findings that we could at least start with from the applicant's attorneys. And again, I think we've got, I don't want to sound boastful of Lincoln County's capacity, but we've got some very, very skilled people here internally that should be able to make that work. And so I think one of the reasons to not delay it is that, again, as the applicants have noted, at least in the case of the single family residences, time is of the essence. So if this is going forward, and if they have any chance of going ahead and being able to actually make real their goal exception by applying that riprap, we need to be moving swiftly. I mean, originally, remember, we chopped off 1 week. The applicants had agreed already to during our last meeting to not wait for that 3rd week period. So again, I think we could do it, Jerry. You want to chime in here too as well. We talked about that this afternoon, and we felt that the 2 weeks we should be able to do that.
Yeah, for the record, this is Jerry Herbage, and I did meet with Anno and John on this just to talk about recommendation on how to handle this. Again, it's in the arms of the Planning Commission, but I feel that we can do that. It will allow us time to get those together. It will also allow us to get the written versions to the Planning Commission, so you can look at it and say, yeah, that's what we like, or we want these changes. So we feel that we can do it. So in that regard, if it's acceptable to the Planning Commission, I think it would be good just to make a motion to reconvene. And the date, let's take a look here.
I'm going to cut you to even to, can you do it in 13 days instead of 14? And let's go
Yeah.
back to the monthly meeting.
Yeah, I think that might not be a bad idea to say the 12th. We understand there's a holiday in there, and it's a short week this week, but we feel we can do that. So if you made a motion to reconvene on July 12th at 7 p.m., I think that would work.
I imagine that the the lawyers have already drawn up their hopeful list of findings so that they can speed up the process.
Well, we needed what we really needed tonight were instructions from you. And I think that was also stated during the last hearing, that this is a milestone, that you've taken a vote tonight on these 3 applications. And so, yeah, but thank you for that.
I would move that we reconvene the meeting after the attorneys and staff have prepared the appropriate documents on July 12th at 7 o'clock.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shaylin. Okay, all those in favor, wave, or Judy, just chime in.
Yes.
Misty, we lost you too. So, yay. Okay, so unanimous.
Okay.
All right. All right. Are there any other planning commission concerns at this time? This was a good job on everyone's part. I thought this was going to run really late, and I think we did well with all this material.
I think it's the
Judy?
most material we've ever had. I mean,
Brian,
hundreds of pages.
Will the meeting on July the 12th be in person or online?
Huh, interesting. We will see, I guess. Staff, let us know.
We
I don't
will.
know,
So
hybrid-
obviously, this is a fast breaking thing about how the opening is happening or not happening and how it'll happen. So as soon as we know something, we'll make sure we let you guys know as soon as we know.
Great.
We'll see it on the Lincoln alerts anyhow.
Yeah. I think like the Hatfield Center's opening.
Will the meeting on July the 12th be in person or on Zoom?
We don't know yet.
Yeah,
I will confirm that. I expect that it will be in some electronic form. Okay. So to the people, just to continue what we're doing, we are going to switch over to in-person things at some point. Even the board hasn't done that on their commissioner meetings. But I think for the record, so if people are watching this, I expect that it will be electronic and we will get the word out. We will post that, right? We will post that on the website or on the homepage. People will know the format, but I expect it'll be some electronic version.
Great. Is there any other issues coming up after this that we should be aware of? You're trying to plan a meeting. I suspect that the case from last week will disappear as far as the appeal on the denial of the beachfront protective structure. So
On August 9th or something like that. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Let's not speculate. What will happen, and that's controlled in large measure, well, completely by the applicant. So we'll wait to see what the applicant has to say, and we won't speculate about that. We'll just worry about this. And in that regard, I do want to thank all the planning commission members and staff for all your time and all your work. It's just great, the work you do. So thank you very much.
okay. But
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you. And please let us know if that case does go away for those folks who are, in case we're going to be in-person meetings and you're planning any kind of vacations or things like that. It would be helpful to know what's coming down the tubes.
As soon as we hear from that applicant, we will let you know right away. And again, as Jerry said, let's not speculate that they make it. One of the options they may do is continue it just to play it out as a parallel process, as long as we don't know. They'll let us know.
Okay, but nothing else coming that you know of right at this moment. Good to know.
Nothing nearly this titanic. We're extremely busy, and we are in a real estate boom, and we're trying to staff up all those kinds of things. But again, more routine stuff and nothing quite like this or the GP. So for some of you commissioners who are pretty new to the commission, it's not always like this. We've had some pretty big deals here recently. So if you're wondering, my God, what did I get myself involved in? It probably, you won't be seeing things quite like this on any kind of regular basis.
We shall see.
We shall see. Yeah, from my lips to God's ear, right? But that's right. I've learned from doing this job now after 9 years that we are not in control of what's going on out there. That's really for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I believe we are adjourned, and I'll see you all on July 12th. All right.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Right.